Today, in 12 Country, we're going to spotlight a town that was called Irvington back in the 1830s, but just a few years after that, it was called Eufaula. And we're with the mayor of Eufaula, Jimmy Clark. Jimmy, the town originally was really a river commerce town. Is it dependent on the river still?
It's very important to the economy of Eufaula. We have a large tourist trade here as a result of the lake of some 55,000 acres. Over 3 million visitors a year visit this lake. We have a lot of activities surrounding it, such as the National Championship Boat Show, the new state park, Lake Point Resort State Park. We have fishing rodeos almost the year round, so it's tremendously important to us here in Eufaula.
What's the population here?
About 11,500.
Is it still growing?
It's growing at a consistent, low but consistent rate, yes.
What is the main attraction?
The main attraction, I think, of course, the people first. It's an old town, a lot of cultural advantages here in Eufaula. The old homes, the old downtown section is being revitalized. And then, of course, we have a good industrial base here that provides good job opportunities for its people.
So job opportunities are very important nowadays. What about recreational, other than the tourist attractions? What about like schools and things like that?
We have a fine school system. We have 3 elementary schools, a middle school, a high school, and a new comprehensive high school to be completed in September of 1978 for occupancy. That's costing $3.5 million.
How about politics? I understand also that Eufaula has always had a deep interest in politics.
That's true. It goes back to even back in the middle 50s. Alabama's Civil War governor, Governor John Gill Shorter, taught 50 young lawyers here in 1850. And it was a center for secessionist activity at that time. We've had 6 governors from Barber County and several of those from Eufaula, and always politics has been almost like a business here in this area.
Well, it was your business for a while. Weren't you senator for how long?
16 years.
And I understand that you were pretty much responsible for getting the recreational things out here on the lake.
Well, I had a part in it. Of course, a lot of other people participated in that too, including our very active Chamber of Commerce and other civic leaders of the town.
It seems to me in the spring that Eufaula is the prettiest, and isn't that about the time of year you have your tour of homes here?
That's correct. Around the 1st of April each year, when the dogwoods and the azaleas are their prettiest, we have the Eufaula pilgrimage. And usually from 7 to 12 homes are shown at that time, and it's gotten to be almost a national event. We have a large number of people that come here, bus tours from all over the state, from outside the state. People fly into our airport to come to the Eufaula pilgrimage because we have a unique style of architecture here that goes back to the War Between the States period that is unlike most of the other old towns in Alabama and even in the South.
So you've got old towns, you've got culture, you've got politics, recreation, good schools, and a growth population that's just not growing in leaps and bounds, but it's increasing every year. Sounds like a good place to live.
We think so, and we invite people to come and visit us and come and live with us here. We are interested in having people move into Eufaula.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Clark, for letting us get a glimpse of what Eufaula looks like and learning a little bit more about it. We will learn a little bit more about another town tomorrow, a town in 12 Country, but I'm not going to tell you today which town it is. I just want you to stay tuned tomorrow. Right now, we want you to stay tuned because we're going to have more news after this message.
The reasoning, George, is simply that historically, when raises go into effect, such as teacher salaries, for example, legislature will mandate, say, a $1,200 increase in salary. But if a teacher only works half-time, they get half of that $1,200. We think the same principle should apply here. There's not enough money appropriated to pay all lunchroom workers $500, so if we attempt that, they'll all be prorated and no one will receive $500. We're surveying the school systems this time, hope to have all the data in by Monday. And then we'll know how many employees work 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and so forth. At this time, it seems somewhere around 90% are working 6 hours or more. So my position is that this is a salary on an hourly basis, and those working 2 hours should get a third as much as those working 6. It's a matter to me that it's right, and what's right you pursue.
Well, Representative Holmes says if the $500 is not paid to all personnel, it's taking authority away from the legislature. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think what Representative Holmes is saying is that in his opinion, as he interprets legislative act, that it says all will receive the money. Well, the state law requires the state superintendent to interpret school laws. I could be wrong, but there's sometimes that you must do what's right even if you risk a court suit. The threat of a court suit does not disturb me.
I think he said that you were taking the workload away from the legislature. They would pass something, and if what they passed wasn't implemented, then we didn't need a legislature.
I won't comment on that. I think that my record is quite clear, is enforcing the laws of the legislature passes. This one happens to be in question. I know what the intent was, and we're trying to carry out the intent of the legislature, regardless of what some few may think.
Good.
Back streets. Discarded mates, children in orphanages, the in and out population of public hospitals are among the human debris lying unused all across this nation. There's also, not always counting in inventory of human wastage, the vast and growing population of Americans with soulless, characterless, invariable jobs that require robot-like human beings to do them. The assembly line, in its mired modern form, has taken over the workplace. I'd like at this time to give you a few things that were steps we've already taken to implement the comprehensive education program. A health coordinator has been appointed by local school authorities for each of 127 local school districts. Many curriculum guides have been distributed by the State Department of Education in response to requests by schools. The process of revising the health education curriculum is underway. A survey of health and instructional practices in the state was conducted in both elementary and secondary schools. More than 1,000 instruments were returned out of a total of 1,300 distributed. The data have been valuable in assessing existing programs as well as providing direction for the future. 5 drive-in workshops for school system health education coordinators and other key personnel were sponsored by the State Department of Education. And 4 workshops were combined to emphasize health education and special education. A survey has been made and data are being tabulated to determine the status of health education professional preparation programs in Alabama colleges and universities. With regard to high school graduation requirements, persons representing the health education recommended that there be a half-unit requirement in health education separate from the physical education requirement. We need to train, certificate, and employ health educators. There are not many of them among us. Quick, emergency first aid type work in this area and save million of lives. Let me assure you that the State Department of Education stand united in our commitment to health education. We intend for this
To find out more about this town of Andalusia, part of 12 country, Clark Edwards talks with its mayor, Chalmers Bryant.
Mayor, tell us about Andalusia. What kind of people live in Andalusia?
Well, of course, the best people in the world, Clark. In general, we have more of the middle-class people in Andalusia than anything else. Of course, we have our share of all classes, but we're just a small, I guess you might say, country town. The main industry in the area has always been and still is agriculture. Of course, in Andalusia itself, we have some industry, some fairly large industry, medium-sized and small industry. Our largest industry would be our shirt factory out here, the Allotax, a division of Cluett Peabody. They make, of course, wearing apparel, primarily shirts here in Andalusia. We also have the Funston Nut Company, who buys and processes pecans, quite a large operation. We have just on the western side of town the Kimbon Company, who make glues, adhesives for the plywood industry, and they are right now in a tremendous expansion program. We also have the Southeastern Box Factory, where they make boxes of all kinds, and then, of course, we have a lot of other smaller industries. Those are our major industries.
You have an industrial park that's just about to open.
Right, we were the recipient of an EDA grant in the amount of $457,000, a 50-50 grant. The city and the water board put up an equal amount, and it is now in the process of being readied for location of what we hope will be several industries. We have a new well in the park. It will have a capacity of 700 gallons a minute and a 750,000 gallon storage tank, which incidentally is more than the combined capacities of all the storage tanks we have at present. So our water storage capacity will be more than double when this is completed, and then there's approximately 147 acres in the park, and it's in the process of being cleared and leveled and graded. And we do have 2 small to medium-sized industries that are already signed up to come into the park. One is a dehydration plant that will dehydrate primarily grasses and possibly some other food products that they will ship overseas. And in connection with it, there will be an incinerator that we will deliver our city garbage and trash to, and they will burn our garbage and trash and provide energy for this dehydration plant to dehydrate their grasses with.
Well, you're solving an energy problem with a new development.
Well, we're solving an energy problem, and we're solving a big headache as far as disposal of garbage and trash is concerned. This is always a major problem in any city, and we do have a landfill, and it has always passed the health department's inspection. But any landfill or any other method of disposing of garbage presents problems, and we think that this burning of the garbage will be the nearest thing to a perfect solution as far as disposal of garbage is concerned.
You also have a celebration coming up in the month of September to do with some kudzu, right?
Oh, we have the Kudzu Contra Festival out at LBW College every fall. This will be the second one, but that's an all-day affair, and they'll have a lot of bluegrass country music there, and also some arts and crafts, quite a few arts and crafts on display. This is, like I say, the second one we've had, and last year was a success, and we're looking forward to this year being a much bigger success, of course.
Mayor, I want to thank you for introducing your city to the rest of 12 country.
Thank you for coming to Andalusia, Clark.
That's our 12 country city spotlighted for today. Stay tuned with more news after this. I'm here today to salute Evergreen, part of our community here in 12 country. And with me is the mayor of Evergreen. His name is Owen Bertrand Tuggle, otherwise known to everybody as Bert. And Bert's lived here on and off for 14 years, but he's only been mayor for 1 year now. Is that right, Bert?
That's correct, yes.
You told me that Evergreen was your average small community. What do you mean by that?
Well, by average small community, it's a good place to live. We can enjoy the conveniences of average city services, the average of whatever the result is of being organized as a community. We have a good climate. We have good people. When you start to bake a cake, you start with the best of ingredients, and I think a community is the same. We start with good people. It's a pleasant place to live, being located as it is about equidistant between Montgomery, Mobile, and Pensacola. We have the advantages of being able to live a simple, quiet life, and also the advantages of being able to spend all the money or more than we can make in the cities around us.
You mean small town people really spend more money than they can make, just like big town people do?
I would say that people are the same all over, both the big towns and the small towns. They usually live on whatever scale they can afford, and that usually amounts to about what we can make. Yeah.
I'm from a big city, New York City, and I just often wondered what it was like to live in a very small town. Does everyone really know everybody else?
Well, yes. In a town the size of Evergreen, everyone does know everyone else. when a stranger comes to town, we only have one person at a time to learn. So right away we know him, and we're curious enough to know what type of a person he is, whether we're going to like him or whether we won't like him. Of course, he has, on the other hand, he has, in the case of Evergreen, 4,500 people to get to know. But by and large, you live in a fishbowl, and everybody knows everybody's business. We, of course, have a weekly newspaper, and we only take the weekly paper to find out whether or not the newspaper people got it right. We already know what happened.
I see. The industry here, do you have agriculture? Do you have, what kind of industry? What's your economic base here?
Evergreen, we think, has a very good balance between agriculture and industry. Of course, agriculturally, our people are farmers, cattlemen, and of course the timber industry, where the farmers play an active part. We have a number of industries in town employing from, say, 50 people to 400 people. We have an industry here that started out many years ago gathering their living from the surrounding area in the form of evergreen shrubbery. Magnolia, smilax, etc., the things that naturally grew in the community. It has since, however, outgrown itself and is an international company, and principally in dried flowers. We have one of the largest non-certificated, irregular, or certificated rather, I'm getting it mixed up, certificated irregular motor carriers. Trucking company employing about 400 people. We have a meat packing house. We have a number of companies employing from 25, say, to 50 people. So we have a good balance.
Well, it sounds like you have a good balance, and you still have what the town was named for, evergreen growing things around here. Thank you very much, Mayor. We've been saluting evergreen today, and tomorrow we'll be saluting somewhere else in our 12th country. Be sure to stay tuned. We'll have more news after this message.
Judge, how are you feeling?
How you doing?
Just fine.
Nice to see
Feeling
you.
all right?
Great. Just feeling
How are
great.
you feeling? Good?
Just great.
When do you hope to be able to get back to work, Judge?
Oh, in the morning?
Are you ready for those confirmation hearings at this point?
Well, not quite yet. Within a few weeks.
Have you talked to the president recently?
Not directly.
Has your
My
doctor?
wife and my doctor and Judge Bell have talked to him, and I've talked to him through them.
Were they giving them a condition report on your condition?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And what type
very
of report?
comprehensively.
What type of report?
Says very good. Excellent.
When do you expect
They
to
say I'm
return?
ready to go.
When do you
Yeah.
expect to be back to a full work schedule?
Oh, within a month?
And you say you're not quite ready for those confirmation hearings. It'll be a week or two. Is that physically?
Yes.
When
So
do you
by
expect?
then you will be ready to?
It takes a while to get your stamina back, you know, after you go through one of these operations.
How do you feel right now?
Fine, just great.
Judge, is any indication that the hearings will be held before the congressional recess?
I don't have any indications to that effect. Either one way or the other.
one way or the other.
That's right.
Do you know when the president plans to send up your name?
I do not.
When do you expect to actually be able to go into the office? You'll be working at home for the next little while?
Oh, in the office.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll be going to the office each day.
Tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Regular time tomorrow?
Well, I don't know about 6:30, but within a reasonable time in the morning.
How was your stay in Houston?
Very nice. Very nice. Treated me beautifully. Just beautifully.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah.
Judge, thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Nice to see you back.
Nice to see you.
Good to have you.
We'll receive reimbursement. We've been assured by Blue Cross, the new fiscal intermediary, that means every 2 weeks.
That's what the cost is. Finally get a system that's decent.
Actually, no, a group of druggists today are forming a group to withdraw from Medicaid. And they are taking a blunt.
President Plan offered, if I might, rather than
Them back in the pharmacy for the contract.
from a small town in between two larger towns.
It's costing $2.25 for prescription. Now, this chain told me the group, they've been asked by.
And they are taking a blunt. And I wanted to ask Dr. Winter in his review.
We hate to lose it, but this year, the low bidder, Blue Cross, Blue Shield of Birmingham, bid, and they were awarded the bid as low bidder. As low bidder, their bid did not include the bank draft system. Now, they bid approximately 8 cents per claim, and we are presently paying around 13 cents per claim. So really, it's a matter of economic.
Finally get a system that's decent, that can save them the cost and the burden. And the first thing we do when we finally get it running good, take another contract on and switch it back to some kind of a manual system that's going to add cost to it. I think that's a tragedy, and I think we ought to recommend if they take another look at that contract, or at least that provision of it, as a committee, because I think that's a mistake, and I think somebody's going to be suffering for it before it's over. Not only the pharmacists, because many of them are not even going to fool with Medicaid claims. So who's going to suffer from that? People the sick people. And I guarantee you some of these small druggists are just going to say, no more Medicaid claims for me because I can't afford the administrative burden.
Senator back.
Following those remarks with which I'm accord, I
would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we ask the Medical Services Association, or this committee, to take another look at this particular contract, specifically at that bank draft procedure for the pharmacists. And it may go no further than that point, but I think we ought to go on record in favor of it.
Actually, in the work of the study, on pages Mr. Worthington and the Medical Service Administration, and also by our congressional representatives, if federal action may be something we can hope for. Administration who work with me as associates, looking at it from a 20-year standpoint, we're going to have to take some measures that will cost a little more money, will really involve initially only economies of scale. If, for example, we're going to eventually get our nursing home and our hospital, our institutional census down, we're going to have to find new incentives for home health care and preventive medicine and getting the problems before, they get in the hospital. Necessarily, that will involve spending some more money. So
us opening up different avenues of paying for preventive medicine, would it not just compound our immediate financial crises to outweigh the long-term gains?
We request also, or recommend also, that the
I have only had one complaint of a department head probably giving instructions maybe out of their area of supervision or responsibility. However, I think that has been resolved, and if that's what they're alluding to. As to the firmness of the decisions, once a decision is made, I mean, of course, this office would be expected for it to be carried out, and you make a decision for it to be carried out, and that's as firm as it can be, or should be.
Well, some employees have told us that your administrative assistant, Mrs. Pat Morgan, and another woman who works here, Mrs. Molly Kemp, give orders that you should be giving, and that they just about run this housing authority.
I noticed that the report didn't call any names, if that's what they're alluding to, and I haven't had any complaints from any employee in regard to these two employees. However, as I mentioned earlier, I have had in the past of one of our department heads getting out of their area of supervision, which I think has been resolved. If I could ask you or ask the employees to come forward, if that has been done, I'd certainly look into it. I have no registered complaint with me in that regard.
There are also charges that there's a clique between you, Mrs. Kemp, and Mrs. Morgan because you're members of the same church. Do you have any answer to that?
I'm not sure what I think that you mean by clique. As far as working conditions or working matters, we would not let the fact that we go to church together or worship together have anything at all to do with our working conditions.
It's been 13 years since HUD has done an extensive management study of the operations of the Montgomery Housing Authority. The results of that study is expected to be the main topic of discussion at the Housing Authority Board's next regularly scheduled meeting on the first Tuesday in October. From the Montgomery Housing Authority, this is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
In order to be eligible for a physically handicapped person's permit, an applicant shall either be confined to a wheelchair, required to use crutches, walkers, or aids to acquire mobility, to be afflicted in such a manner as to substantially affect the ability to walk more than 50 feet without severe physical condition, and the Chief of Police is authorized to issue the permits on the basis of a doctor's certificate for one of these three items here.
Has there been much abuse of these specific parking places so far?
Oh, there are a few. Most people respect them. I think most people in Montgomery are good, law-abiding citizens, but there are those times when somebody will pull into a handicapped place and think to themselves, well, I'll only be there for a minute and run in and out. That's the most problem we have, but there are a few chronic people, chronic offenders rather, who will pull into a handicapped parking place when there might be others a few spaces away, and these are the people we're trying to eliminate and make sure that there is a place on the streets of Montgomery where a handicapped person can park and know that they will be able to find a parking place.